Everyone, we will call to order the special call board meeting for July the 29th, 2026. Thanks everyone for being here. Mr. Blackett.
Yep. Before we turn over to Ms. Cody for the presentation on the tentative millage rate, I do want to remind everybody tonight the intent is to hopefully adopt the tentative millage rate so that we can hold public hearings after that. The final approval of the millage rate will not occur for another couple of weeks. So this is just setting the stage for that to occur in a few weeks. This just gives us the opportunity to advertise what the intent of the board is at this time until we hear public comment. I also do want to remind you, a couple of meetings back, you had already adopted the budget for the year, and this millage rate is tied to the budget. In other words, this funds that budget that you that you passed at that time. And at that time, when you passed the budget, we were assuming a 6% increase in the millage rate. So, but I think Ms. Cody, as she's pulling up her presentation, is going to cover some of that. So, Ms. Cody?
Okay.
Yeah, and you have this as a paper copy in your packet.
And I know this is kind of a different format than we usually present the millage rate, so you do have the attachments are the documents that you typically are used to seeing. So tonight I'll present the fiscal year 2027 millage rate options. The purpose of this presentation is to review the current digest, explain the available millage rate options, discuss the financial impact of each option, and provide a recommendation for the board's consideration. So this year, the net taxable digest is approximately $7.81 billion, representing a 6.54% growth over last year. Over the past 5 years, we've experienced an average digest growth of approximately 7.2%. Each one mill generates approximately $7.39 million in local tax revenue, which illustrates how even a small change in the millage rate can significantly affect district funding. The state calculated rollback rate for fiscal year 2027 is 13.99 mils. And I'll talk about the rollback rate a little bit more in a few minutes. So this next slide summarizes a comparison of the 4 millage rate options I'm going to present tonight. The first slide maintains the current rate of 14.90 mils. The second reduces the rate by 1/4 of a mil. The third reduces the rate by 1/2 of a mil. And then the fourth adopts the state calculated rollback rate. So as you'll notice, each reduction decreases the amount of local revenue available to support the fiscal year 2027 adopted budget. So with option 1, maintaining the current rate generates approximately $110.1 million in property tax revenue. Because the fiscal year 2027 budget was developed using this rate, maintaining the current rate provides approximately $558,000 above the adopted property tax budget. So with option 2, if the millage rate is reduced to 14.65 mils, property tax revenue would decrease to approximately $108.2 million. Compared with the adopted fiscal year 2027 budget, the district would receive approximately $1.29 million less in revenue. And then with the 1/2 mil reduction, that would further decrease property tax revenue to approximately $106.4 million. This results in approximately $3.14 million less than the adopted budget. And so then the rollback rate, I was going to give a little bit of an explanation because sometimes the rollback rate is misunderstood. The rollback rate is established by state law. Its purpose is to offset increases in assessed value resulting from reassessment of existing property. So if the rollback rate is adopted, the district would receive approximately $6.16 million less than the fiscal year 2027 adopted budget.
Could you go through that again?
Mm-hmm.
Just restate it.
So the rollback rate is established by state law, and I'll talk a little bit more about it on the next slide. It may make more sense. But the purpose of the rollback rate is to offset increases in assessed value resulting from the reassessment of existing property. So I think to say it a little bit simpler, the rollback rate is the rate that would generate the exact same tax revenue as we received last year. If we were to maintain the current millage rate, state law requires us to advertise this as a 6.44% increase over the rollback rate. And that's the language that's required by Georgia law. Now, this doesn't mean that every property owner will receive a 6.44% tax increase because many of our property owners have the Scarlett Williams homestead exemption that limits increases in taxable value. So while the district is legally required to advertise a 6.44% tax increase, the actual impact varies depending on each property's assessment and exemptions. And so then my recommendation is that the board maintain the current millage rate of 14.90. And I'm making that recommendation for a couple of reasons. First, it fully supports the fiscal year 2027 adopted budget. Secondly, it provides stable funding for educational programs, staffing, and student services that were approved with that budget. Third, it allows the district to continue addressing inflationary pressures affecting utilities, insurance, instructional materials, transportation, and employee compensation. And then finally, maintaining the current rate provides the greatest level of financial stability and reduces the likelihood that the district would need to make mid-year budget adjustments. And so
Could you
then
flip the script and give a summary for the property owner?
I'm sorry?
Could you flip that script and give the perspective of a property owner about doing this?
Leaving the millage rate the same?
What's the effect on the property owner? Generally, just a general statement.
Well, if the property owner has Scarlett Williams, it's
Of
no
course.
effect. It would just be, so it would be a 6.44% increase for anyone that doesn't have that Scarlett Williams homestead exemption.
Right.
So you do what normal districts do, county do, for a house is $250, your house, your tax will be, that's what you're talking about?
The increase would be for anyone who has an increased property value
Right.
that does not have homestead exemption. So
Right.
they may not necessarily see a 6% if the assessed value of their property did not go up.
Right.
And so then I was just gonna go over the timeline really quick, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions. So tonight's discussion would be followed by the tentative approval of the millage rate. Then we would publish the required advertisements, we would have the public hearings, and then the final adoption of the millage rate would be on August 18th. I did just wanna say too that we can adopt a tentative millage rate tonight, and then after the hearings, before the final rate is adopted, as long as it's lower than what the tentative millage rate is, we don't have to re-advertise or anything like that. So we can adopt a lower rate without starting the process over, just not a higher rate.
So I guess I'll make a motion, we take the millage rate and tentatively approve it as recommended by the finance person who knows what she's talking about.
I second it.
So make sure I understand, motion to accept the recommended, keeping the millage rate at 14.9
Yes.
by Mr. Madala, second by Mr. Jackson. Any other discussion?
I have a question. Might refresh my memory, the values we're working against as a whole of properties that will be assessed by this rate, what did they do in the county, percentage-wise? Do you remember? Do you know?
I'm not understanding the question.
Well, where I'm headed is, maybe I can ask it differently. What is the impact on property owners of adopting this motion?
It depends on if their property was reassessed.
But overall, can you make a general statement about the effect overall?
I have no idea whose property has been reassessed.
No, I'm saying percentage-wise, those who will be, it potentially would raise their taxes by, do we have any idea whatsoever?
It would be commercial properties, rental properties, vacant lots that do not have homestead, but it would only be those that had an increased value from the tax assessor's office. But I don't know that we have any data that shows the percentage of properties that, the percentage of non-homestead properties that may have received a reassessment that increased the property values versus the number of properties that may have received a lower assessment. I don't know that we have
Well,
either of those.
you just hear feedback, and you want to be sensitive to it, that some property owners do have serious concerns about property taxes, and that we should be very diligent about making sure that we create the revenue that we need to effectively run the system and keep pace with the conditions we find ourselves, but we also need to be constantly aware of the impact that property taxes have on everybody, but certain groups perhaps more than others. And I don't want to go away not being sensitive to that. And we know how challenging it is to run the system and get the right amount of money to do so. So I just, you know,
So the group that would be affected would be,
Pondering a little
the
bit.
group that would be assessed would be non-homeowners whose property showed an increased value. That would be, and that would represent the 6.5 some odd percent in the value. Some of those properties are probably properties that were vacant and now have a building or a house on them, so that obviously raised the value of those. Some would have to do with commercial property development that's going on throughout the community. Those would show a large increase.
well, you're the most visible person in the whole school system. What kind of feedback do you get on property taxes in the county?
I mean, honestly, I don't know that, I've not been engaged in a conversation in.
People don't come up and say, you're costing us too much money at all?
I can't speak to where I've had a substantive conversation about that with a lot of people.
All right, I won't ask any further questions.
I think we're like the first ones to set the millage before the county does.
Yes.
Maybe, I don't have.
I think we set ours and it goes to the county, then the county rolls it into theirs, if I'm correct. Mr. Lakin may have some insight.
By law, they have
Yeah.
to, as long as it's under 20 mils,
Yeah.
the county commissioners must adopt the school board's millage rate.
Right.
If it exceeds 20 mils, they have a right to
Right.
decline.
So, yeah, so ours is adopted first and it goes to.
And I'll just add to that, because we went through the PowerPoint presentation, but the other attachment that we have shows the traditional schedules that we've looked at. And for a long time, the millage rate held from like 2015 down through 22. But in 22, we started dropping it, and we dropped it 4 consecutive years.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then kept it steady last year, and we're recommending that rate too. So we have tried to adjust for increases in the digest, and you're talking about the people that have Scarlett Williams are typical, I guess there are some exceptions, but it's usually it's their primary residence, you can't get it on a second home. Or it's a revenue generating property, like we're saying a commercial property that has a business, or a rental property that, you know, can create some revenue for that. And then there is another case, it could be someone that does have a primary residence, but if they make a substantial improvement to it, I think there's language in the Scarlett Williams that says it can be reassessed at that point. So, for the majority of the folks that, you know, live and work here, and the students that go here, it's likely that they are eligible for the Scarlett Williams. And in addition to that, I feel like we've been pretty conscious with the reduction of our rate.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I want those who might be listening in to realize that we're also sensitive to the fact that property taxes are a serious matter for some people.
Yeah.
And that we're trying to weigh that in the balance and make a good decision so that we meet all the educational needs of the county and press forward as a leader in the state, which is what I think we are. But we also are sensitive to the changing dynamics of the economy and the pressure that it puts on some people. And so it's a balancing act.
I think that's a fair point, and then, but also with Ms. Cody saying, you know, tonight's tentative, and there can be changes by the time we adopt it.
It's an excellent presentation, by the way.
So to Ms. Sam's point, the other sheet, it has a 25-year history on there going back to fiscal year.
I got it open right now.
01, yeah, and as you can see there, in 01, we were at 17.89. We trickled down into the 16 and 15s, and then eventually in 2 years ago went down below 15 to 14.9.
Right, but of course, in that period of time, it's dramatic, the digest is dramatically increased.
The percentage, those percentages are on there as well. There's been a couple of years in there, obviously, during 2011 to 2013, we saw a downturn in the values, but other than that, it's been fairly stable increases.
Well, there will be some relief for those that live in the city.
Yes.
5 or more years, own a house 5 or more years. They have implemented a new homestead exemption. So So those who live in Old Town, Riverside, and those areas in high-price homes should see some relief with the city taxes, which will balance it out.
I think it's worth noting, Ms. Cody's obviously got her very good pulse of the finances as well, because per our budget that we approved, she was within $500,000 of where we are.
Right, and I think that's one thing to keep in mind too, is we did approve a budget with a little over $1.5 million deficit. So we still are about at $1 million deficit, even with this additional 500,000, so.
Yep. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Mandala, seconded by Mr. Jackson to adopt the tentative millage rate at 14.9.
One more question in light of that
Yes.
comment. Do you recommend any more?
Any more?
The deficit, you said we still, even with the adoption, your last comment, do you think we're adequate?
Yes.
We'll get out of
I mean, I guess my point was that we're not adopting a millage rate that, leaves us with this huge excess.
Go ahead, excuse me.
Okay, so I think we know the motion. Any other discussion? All those in favor? And it's unanimous? What's that?
It's a difficult decision, but,
Yeah.
the
So,
way she presented, and we're not raising anything,
all right, and if we could entertain a motion to go into executive session for personnel.
Personnel, and I don't believe I have anything else.
So move,
Just personnel.
so move.
Motion by Mr. Jackson, I'll second it. All those in favor? Unanimous? Thank you.
Ms. Seals, you.
Motion by Mr. Jackson, second by Mr. McVeigh. All those in favor? Unanimous? All right, now, anyone, or will entertain a motion to accept the personnel report as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McVeigh, second by Mr. Jackson. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? And that's unanimous. And I'll make a motion that we adjourn the
Second.
meeting. Mr. Jackson seconds. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? And it's unanimous at 6:27.
Next meeting up.